New details about what happened on a cruise ship when a Bartlett woman went overboard.
You just gonna fall overboard? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
A 911 call that a passenger in the cabin below was actually struck on the arm by the person who fell from the cabin above.
A lady called and said something from the deck above her fell overboard and hit her arm.
Ariel Marion in her cabin on the Allure of the Seas mere moments after she stepped on board, mere hours before she went overboard.
And she just wanted more out of life, and she just didn't get a chance to do that.
This is the story of Ariel Brianna Marion, a 21-year-old woman who vanished from a cruise ship on the very first night of a peaceful mother-daughter vacation. The last trace of her was a quick blurred flash gone before anyone understood the gravity of what had happened.
New details about what happened on a cruise ship when a Bartlett woman went overboard and moments after as crews struggled to find her.
Ariel's mother says her daughter could have been saved.
Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, fair use is permitted for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. On September 16, 2012, 21-year-old Ariel Brianna Marion and her mother Vera flew in from Tennessee and set out on what was meant to be a peaceful 7-day Caribbean cruise. They boarded one of the largest cruise ships in the world, Royal Caribbean's Allure of the Seas. It carried over 6,000 passengers and more than 2,000 crew members. The two were part of a travel group, nearly 600 fellow travelers whom they'd meet up with later that evening at the welcome reception. The ship stretched nearly 4 football fields long, endless decks, bright lights, luxury at every turn. But for Ariel and her mom, it was a simple chance to relax, to reconnect, and to make memories. That evening, Ariel and her mother Vera joined nearly 600 other travelers for the welcome reception, the official kickoff to their 7-day cruise. The ship had just pulled away from the Florida coast and was making its way towards Nassau. The reception was lively. Music played softly over the speakers, drinks were being passed around, and guests mingled in a bright open space on one of the upper decks. It was a welcoming celebration, an upbeat beginning to a mother-daughter getaway. Ariel was the kind of person who stood out in a crowd without trying. She had a beautiful smile, wide and genuine, the kind of smile that lit up her whole face and carried herself with a charm that drew people in. She looked happy to be there. As the evening went on, Ariel's mother Vera noticed several male crew members, bartenders, and staff serving at the event, approaching her daughter Ariel and asking if she wanted to meet up later that night. At the time, Vera didn't think much of it. Her daughter Ariel was 21, confident, and more than capable of handling herself in social situations. But later, Vera would come to deeply regret not being more concerned, as cruise lines are supposed to have a strict zero-tolerance policy about staff fraternizing with passengers. The reception ended around 6:30 p.m. that evening, and Ariel and Vera returned to their shared balcony cabin on deck 11. The view was beautiful, nothing but open sea and fading sunlight. They had a dinner scheduled with their group at 8:30 p.m., so Vera decided to lie down for a quick nap before getting ready, as she was a bit tired from the travels and reception party. It was at that time that Ariel told her mom she was going to the pool to hang out for a bit before dinner. It was a short, casual exchange. Nothing was unusual about it. Vera nodded, assuming she'd meet back up with her daughter Ariel later that evening. But that moment was the last time Vera Marion would ever see her daughter again. Around 8:30 p.m., just one deck below Ariel and Vera's cabin, a passenger standing on her balcony felt something rush past her. It brushed against her arm as it fell, fast and close. Panicked, the passenger called the ship's emergency line. The passenger wasn't sure what she had just witnessed.
This is a very specific 911 call that a passenger in the cabin below was actually struck on the arm by the person who fell from the cabin above.
Finally, at 10:27 p.m., a security officer confirmed what no one wanted to believe. A woman had gone overboard. That That confirmation came after reviewing the ship's surveillance footage. That woman was Ariel Brianna Marion.
They knew she had gone overboard. A lady called and said something from the deck above her fell overboard and hit her arm. They immediately cleared off that side of the ship, but they never started the search.
The Allure of the Seas was over 40 miles from the Florida coast by then, and the ship's captain reportedly slowed the vessel, turned it around, and reached out to the Coast Guard and Bahamian authorities. Records would later show the U.S. Coast Guard wasn't officially contacted until 11:30 p.m., and an organized search didn't begin until 1:20 a.m., nearly 5 hours after Ariel was seen on camera going overboard.
It was 2 hours before I heard them with the radio do the Oscar call.
While all of this was unfolding, Vera Marion had no idea her daughter was even missing. That night, Vera had gone to the group dinner, unaware of the emergency call made from Deck 10, unaware that security officers were reviewing surveillance footage of her daughter's final moments. Vera had woken up from her nap sometime before 8:30 p.m., gotten dressed, and made her way to the dining area, expecting that Ariel would join her there. Maybe a little late, maybe after a swim. Ariel was grown. She figured they'd meet up at the table like planned. But not long after Vera sat down, 3 ship security officers quietly approached her and asked if she could come with them. They didn't explain why. Ariel's mother, Vera, was led to a secluded room, somewhere private away from other guests on the ship. And then the questions begin. Where had she and Ariel been since boarding? Could Ariel swim? Had anything unusual happened with her daughter? Vera was confused. The questions didn't make sense. And then, slowly, it started to sink in. Ariel was in danger. Vera Marion became hysterical. She begged for answers. She wanted to see her daughter, to know if Ariel was okay.
My daughter could swim a little bit. I told them that. They started asking me, could she swim? And that's when I panicked and knew that they knew she had gone overboard.
But instead of comfort, Vera says she was placed in a wheelchair, moved to a different cabin without a balcony, and isolated from the rest of the ship. No explanation, no reassurance, no ability to leave, or even to return to her belongings. According to Vera, she was denied access to her original room where her and Ariel's things were still stored. She wasn't allowed to retrieve her clothing, toiletries, or any personal items.
At 9:30 p.m., ship staff brought Vera to a secure room. 11:30 p.m., the Coast Guard was called in with the ship 47 miles off the coast of Fort Lauderdale. 1:20 a.m., the search began.
By the morning of day 2, Ariel's body had still not been recovered. The Coast Guard officially called off the search later that day after covering over 2,300 square feet of open ocean.
The Coast Guard says it scoured more than 2,300 square miles of the Atlantic over 2 days, but did not find Ariel.
I believe they could have saved my daughter if they had began the search immediately.
Vera Marion, Ariel's mother, remained confined to that second cabin for the remainder of the cruise. She wasn't allowed to speak to anyone. She wasn't told what was happening with her daughter. Later, Vera learned that passengers were told she had disembarked early, that she had already flown home, but she hadn't. She was still on board, locked away, grieving and alone. On the final day of the cruise, Vera was escorted off the ship by staff. She was not allowed to rejoin her travel group. She was placed on a different return flight and sent home without answers. In the days that followed, Vera Marion tried to make sense of what had happened. She says she identified the crew members who had approached Ariel at the welcome reception, the same men who asked Ariel to meet up with them that first night. But no one followed up. The only person extensively questioned, watched, and silenced was Vera Marion. When Vera returned home to Tennessee, she was so overwhelmed with grief and trauma that she was hospitalized.
You might imagine her mother is grieving, distressed, confused, distraught. She had to go to the emergency room this morning. Doctors admitted her to the hospital.
And still, no one has been held responsible. No one has been named, and Ariel Brianna Marion's body has never been found. After Vera Marion returned home to Tennessee, a candlelight vigil was held in her daughter's Ariel's honor.
Tonight, there will be a candlelight vigil for Ariel Marion. It is scheduled to start at 6 o'clock this evening at Oak Grove Baptist Church.
Family and friends gathered to remember Ariel, to speak her name, to grieve what had been lost, and to try to make sense of what never should have happened. 3 of Ariel's closest friends shared their memories, their heartbreak, and their doubts.
No, nobody has closure. It's unbelievable.
Maya Crawford, Megan Brown, and London Johnson are heartbroken and haunted by unanswered questions.
As far as we know, they're saying it was an accident and she just fell off the boat. Nobody was around when it happened. You just gonna fall overboard? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Friends want to silence any speculation that Marion might have jumped.
Bree was nothing like that at all. She was just determined and ambitious, and she just wanted more out of life, and she just didn't get a chance to do that.
As they wait for their chance to learn the whole truth, friends of Bree Marion cope by clinging to fond memories.
Bree was down for anything. You call her, she'd be like, oh, let's go. I'm just going to miss her as a sister, because she was really a part of our family. Her laugh. It's like I can't get it out of my head.
Their words said more than headlines ever could. Ariel had dreams, she had plans. She talked about moving to Miami or California, about becoming a tattoo model. Ariel wanted adventure, she wanted more, and she didn't get the chance to see it through. Ariel Marion would later sum it up in just a few heartbreaking words. My daughter and I paid for a cruise. She paid with her life, and I paid with solitary confinement and suffering that continues to this day.
47 miles from the Florida port, Marion fell to her death. Despite a 2,300 square mile search in the Atlantic, her body was never recovered.
To this day, Ariel Brianna Marion has never been found. Vera believes that if action had been taken immediately, if the ship had just stopped when the first emergency call came in, her daughter might still be alive.
I believe they could save my daughter if they had began the search immediately.
Why didn't the ship stop sooner? Why wasn't more done when there was still time? There were cameras, there were protocols, there was a chance to save Ariel, and they weren't taken. And because of that, Vera Marion lives every day without her daughter and with so many unanswered questions, and most importantly, without closure.
These are pictures of the victim, Ariel Marion, just hours before she went overboard. Pictures here with her mother.
Ariel Brianna Marion was 21 years old, smart, vibrant, and full of life. She boarded that cruise expecting joy, adventure, and memories with her mother. Instead, she never came home. Let's let Ariel's story be a reminder. Cruise lines must be held to higher standards, but we also have to look out for each other. Traveling far from home, out on open water, comes with risk. Drink responsibly, stay close to people you trust, and don't assume you're safe just because you're surrounded by luxury. Because when something goes wrong, sadly, not everyone will choose truth over reputation or people over profit. This is the story of Ariel Marion, Lost at Sea, a Lavender Files series. Thanks for watching. If you believe in keeping these cases present and bringing awareness to each story, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It helps more people find these stories and helps keep them from being forgotten. And if you'd like to know when new videos go up, you can also tap the bell icon and YouTube will notify you when we post new videos here at Lavender Files.